Hi, my name is Maya Thorpe, and I'm studying special education at the College of Charleston with an art extension. And my goal is to become an art teacher. And I feel majoring in special education will allow me to adapt to all my students no matter their ability. And so every child feels included, valued, and confident in their creativity. Art was always a safe place for me, and I want my future students to have the same experience. For this presentation, I wanted to focus on least restrictive environment, or LRE, because inclusion is truly at the core of both my personal philosophy and special education law. LRE is about finding the right balance between giving students support and also giving them independence. It helps me imagine what a safe, supportive classroom looks like. To understand LRE today, we have to look at how we got here, meaning we need to look at the history, the past. So for most of U.S. history, children with intellectual disabilities weren't allowed in public schools at all. Families and advocates worked for decades to gain access. And in 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, now referred to as IDEA, finally guaranteed that students with disabilities were entitled to free appropriate public education, or FAPE. Court cases help define what that education should look like. In Board of Education versus Rowley in 1982, the Supreme Court said that IEPs only needed to be reasonably calculated to offer some benefit. But 35 years later, the court realized that wasn't enough. In Andrew F. in 2017, they ruled that students deserve an IEP that allows them to make appropriate progress in light of their circumstances, not just minimal gains. This raised expectations for teachers, schools, and the entire IEP process. So what does that mean for us as future educators? It means we start with inclusion to fit in every classroom and only move to a more restrictive placement if supports and services aren't enough. Every placement has to be decided through an IEP team and revisited every year. As a teacher, that means working closely with families, the gen ed teachers, and specialists to make decisions based on the child's needs. High leverage practices, HLPs, help bring the law into real classrooms. These include collaborating with families, adapting instruction, giving clear feedback, and using progress monitoring to show actual growth, not just busy work. That matters to me because every child deserves a chance to learn alongside their peers and work toward a meaningful and challenging goal. Next, I want to talk briefly about intellectual disability. Since my learner profile focuses on a student with the mild IDEA related to Down syndrome, IDEA defines intellectual disability as below average intellectual functioning paired with deficits in adaptive behavior showing up during development. For teachers, this affects how we teach, how we support, and how we design assessments. Students with ID often struggle with processing new information, problem solving, communication, and keeping up with typical learning speed. But they benefit greatly from visual supports, clear and simple instructions, repetition, and hands-on activities. My learner fits this pattern. They have mild ID, intellectual disability, difficulties working with memory and independence, but they excel with art, visual schedules, and scheduled routines. Vygotsky's sociocultural theory also connects here. Students learn best when the instruction falls within their zone of proximal development, ZPD, and with good scaffolding, which would be I do, we do, you do. That's why explicit modeling, guided practice with feedback, and lots of repetition are essential. There are also a variety of service delivery models for students with mild to moderate ID. These include inclusive classrooms, resource rooms, co-teaching, and in some cases, self-contained classes. Research shows that when inclusion is done well and supported by evidence-based practices, students achieve better academic and social outcomes. The key is selecting the appropriate model and using high leverage practices like scaffolding, explicit instruction, and constant progress monitoring.